All right, welcome to the AP podcast. This is Mike Shea. I am here with somebody I've been wanting to sit down with for a while, actually, and he and I've talked about it, and the gods have made it happen, and now we are here together. I'm here with Andy Biersack, who's obviously the lead singer, but he's also the founder and the inspiration, the soul of Black Veil Brides. And Andy's got an amazing story, and he's also an incredible talent, and he's also a very legit dude, and I'm really happy you're here today.
Oh, thanks, Mike. I'm glad to be here.
Fellow Ohioans kind of way. I don't know. Are you actually Cincinnati or more Kentucky side?
Well, you know, I was born in Cincinnati. I spent most of my adolescence in Cincinnati. It wasn't until I got to be in bands that I really started to associate more with Kentucky, because in Cincinnati, there were no venues except for Bogart's, which was unattainable when you're young. So all the clubs were in Kentucky. And from I would say 14 until I moved out, I was always in Kentucky. I slept over there constantly, all my friends' houses. I wound up spending more time in Kentucky, so I started to kind of associate that way. But if I'm honest, I'm a Cincinnati, Ohio guy.
I think your Wikipedia page says you were born in Milwaukee.
Which is untrue, and I do not know why it says that. However, I make the joke every time we play in Milwaukee that I'm in my hometown show, so I wear a Brewers jersey, and for whatever reason, and people have changed it, and then someone keeps changing it back. But Wikipedia is just a mess of misinformation, that whole thing.
It is a mess of misinformation. But you know what? Everybody feels like they have a piece of you now.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, in Cleveland, the Cuyahoga River divides the city, and the people on the west side of town act and think differently than the people on the east side of town. And I've heard that over the years that the music scenes are divided from Cincinnati and to Lexington and Covington and all that stuff. That is divided by that Ohio River. Mm-hmm. And have you noticed that? Like when you were starting out, you have like this rivalry going on. Like, oh, you're from the Ohio side. It's
not even it's the west side of Cincinnati, and then Kentucky is one thing. The river doesn't necessarily divide it. The east side of Cincinnati is where the affluent, rich sort of communities are, where there's an IKEA. Like the things that where I'm from seem insane, that, you know, are kind of commonplace. It's where the girls that I wanted to date were from, because they're better looking and they were more well kept, and they had nice cars and that kind of thing. The east side of Cincinnati is where, you know, and that's actually where my dad grew up, on the east side of Cincinnati before it became the east side of Cincinnati. And then he met my mom and they fell in love with the west side, because the west side's a little grittier. That's where my mom was from. And there's a lot more history on the west side. People are, you know, there's a lot more stabbings, but there's also a lot more, fun. There's historical societies and all that. But no, the west side of Cincinnati and Kentucky are sort of one thing. And that's where you have the most angry people imaginable making music. And that's where you have terrible, Courage Crew straight edge bands that just can't string two notes together, but they just want to beat you up for smoking a cigarette. And that's where you have, through that, sometimes awesome things happen. So west side of Cincinnati is where Foxy Shazam is from. Mm-hmm. There were some cool bands that came out of there. There was, when I was younger, there's Close to Home and a few other bands that have done well in their careers. But it's always from that area. The east side bands tend to be the bands that go more, I guess it was just they were more musically talented. They had more money, so they could learn. They could go to music school and all that stuff. And they would never come down and play. There was a few. But they were, when that whole scene kid, emo kid thing started, that's where all those kids were from, because they could afford to go get the special jeans and the hair products to dye their hair a certain way and all that.
Right, they could afford Hot Topic.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks. Which there was no Hot Topics on the west side of Cincinnati.
No? I
would get all my clothes when I was a kid at a very sketchy place with a lip service catalog that I had to order it was it really was, because, and I try to explain this to people, when I was dressing and looking the way that I was as a kid in 2002, 2003, I was unaware of what was happening with the whole, from first to last and all that. I joke with Matt Good, who's been my friend for years, is that I had no idea that he was who he was. I just saw that as that wasn't me. I was into the Misfits, and I had this, and my hair was this way because of this, and I would go to this place called Sentiments, which was run by, I'm pretty sure, a drug dealer, and all of it was just, the bootleg, G.G. Allen shirts and everything, and I would save my money up, and I'd order TUK shoes and the lip service pants that you'd have to cut the straps off, or else you can't. Because I guess they're meant for some function. I still have not figured out what. I think my best bet for that function is so that people can't escape during a fire very effectively. That's why you have the tie together, so you can just sort of jump. I don't know, is it sexual?
Death Trap would be a good clothing line name.
But yeah, so it wasn't until later that all that stuff started to come down west, and then that was around the time that I was getting older, and that's when like anyone who had any kind of, I guess, ingenuity, I saw there was a Hot Topic that was built in our neighborhood, and I saw all these kids start doing this and dressing this way. And I'm like, look, I don't like the music that you like, but I'm pretty sure that there's something about what I do that you'll understand. So I'm never going to make the Under Oath, that kind of stuff that you guys are all listening to, but I feel like there's something about like, here, check this out. Look at what I'm doing. And that's when I would, make covers of Alkaline Trio songs or whatever. And like, look at this. Do you like this? I know you like that, but like, look at
So you always felt like you were a step ahead of them, or you were trying to stay a step ahead of where the rest of the crowd was going?
No, I just hated it. I didn't like it. I was too, all the reasons that people hate us now, I understand, because when I was a kid, I couldn't imagine anything that could be worse than Good Charlotte or Simple Plan or all these bands that were popular, because to me it was like, you're offending Rancid or whatever, all these things that I had such strong beliefs for someone who knew nothing as a kid. Like, I knew what punk rock was. I'm a kid from Cincinnati. I didn't know what punk rock was to save my life, but I thought I did. And so I had that hatred for popularity and things that were, if a girls liked it, I was like, which now is so ridiculous, by the way, because the only girls that I wanted to be with anyway would have only liked me because of the bands that I liked. But that's a whole separate thing I didn't realize till I got older.
Self-defeating in a way.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I should have been going like, oh, you like Good Charlotte? They're popular. I'm the weird looking kid. I could cachet this, but no, never paid attention to that. So when I was younger, it was really about, I couldn't understand the like little girl whiny voice with the braid, like all the stuff that's still amazingly still so prevalent. I never understood it. And it wasn't about making something better or it was just, I felt like there was a way that I could do music that was genuine to what I wanted to do that would still appeal to those people, but I didn't have to pander. I didn't want to try to do that. And as a kid, I had no idea what I was doing. I was not a good songwriter. It wasn't until recently that I even learned how to write songs in terms of structure. Our first record has no bridges on it because I didn't know how to write a bridge. I just go, well, I'll just yell here. That's what I do because I don't know how to. The only reason we ever had screaming in the band is because I had no idea how to write a bridge. That's to God's honest truth. And I've told people this before. People are like, why don't you bring back the screaming? I learned how to write a song. The only reason that was there was because I was too chicken shit to try to figure out how to write a separate section on the song. But having said that, as a kid, I had all these ambitions, and you want to do all that. You want to sound like the Misfits meets Motley Crue. It's what, like all this
stuff.
And,
you were your inspirations. Your first few releases, especially your first one, is basically you paying tribute to all your idols.
Right.
So, because you were you really a one-man army, like at that point, or did you kind of have a posse of like other kids that kind of looked up to you or that hung out with you, and like you guys were like the cool kids? Like,
no, it went in phases. So when I was really young, I had the strangest of posses. I grew up in the first neighborhood that we lived in until we moved. I was one of maybe 5 white kids in my school. It was a very predominantly black, very oppressed area. And I got along super well because the one thing that in my life I've always had is that I was always a little different. And those kids, this is right around the time where Cincinnati had race riots, and young black kids were getting treated like shit by like important white people. Cops hated them. I associated with that. So I got along well with, more than anything else, I got along really well with like young, angry black kids. And that was my whole thing as a kid. So all my friends were like, there was a couple black kids who found Metallica. So they were suddenly interested in like, the white kid who had the Kiss t-shirt. Like, what is that? And so they come over to my house. So my friend group was either special needs kids that were being treated like shit by everybody that I was a friend to, or young black kids who were more angry, who found Body Count or something and were more angry than the kids that were listening to Shaggy, and they wanted to know what's the heavy metal thing. And that's really all I had when I was super young. And then when we moved to the neighborhood that my parents still live in now, that was when I became, there were no black. And actually the first day that we got there, the woman who lived next to us, she found out where we were from, and she goes, well, thank God we got you away from all those black kids. And we were like, what? Because I couldn't imagine that anybody would have. To me, racism seemed crazy because I didn't have it. And I learned that through the Catholic world that I was in. I learned racism, bigotry, all the things that I was unaware of as a little kid, because people don't realize that in neighborhoods that are not, it doesn't matter. Like, I couldn't, when you don't have a lot of money or whatever else, like it's amazing to me that anybody would ever, they don't put it as a forethought. If someone's black or gay or whatever else, like, it's not the things there that you don't choose that. So that's what you are. It's fine. That's what it doesn't matter because of, there's so much shit around you. Why would you ever want to focus on something that someone can't help anyway? And it's their life and it's their business. And that's when money and religion and power and all the things that allow for comfort come in. Then you can start to pick and choose the things that you want. I was completely unaware of that until I became maybe 11 years old and I saw all this. And that's when I became immediately detached from everybody, because I didn't know why, but I hated all this. I didn't want to be around this. And I couldn't put my finger on it until later, but that's when I became detached from the religious aspect of everything. I was always in trouble. That's when the James Dean kid thing came in, where I was complete, smoking cigarettes outside of school, like rebel kid, wanted to be different. That's when I found like real punk rock in my estimation for me. Like that's when I found like Lords of the New Church and Dead Boys and The Damned and all that stuff, because it was more aggressive than, because I had heard Misfits stuff when I was a kid, but it was, Michael Graves era Misfits was a little bit more Saturday night and poppy, and it was more palatable to like a kid that liked Kiss and stuff. But then the aggression as of getting older, then I wanted to listen to other stuff. And then that's when I got into like early AFI, and that was because it was right around the time that Art of Drowning came out. I didn't know anything about that band, but I was like, oh, hey, this is Misfits meets Damn Angry. Like, this is what I want to do. So
updated.
Yeah, exactly. And that's when I became so into all that. So in terms of friends, I started out social, and then part of the result of the environment I was in, and then also my own choice to be detached, I became completely solitary. And I mean like nobody. And it never even, in all the pictures that I've shown you guys of like stuff I built and everything, it never dawned on me that there was other people outside. And my dad always teased me that girls would stand outside of our house.
Even though the internet was around.
Right. Well, we had a dial-up computer. I never used it. Girls, my dad would tease me. I was unaware. Girls would stand outside while I was singing, and they'd be like, listening to me sing, and they thought it was interesting. But I couldn't care. I'd sing in my room, and that's all I wanted to do.
They'd be standing outside your bedroom, or you mean outside your window?
Outside our house, because they could hear me through the bedroom window. And I don't believe him, but to this day he says they were. And I think it's funny because in a way it shows that I would have loved to talk to girls, but I was like, I don't care. I'm going to be, the kid. I have to hone my skills and be whatever I wanted to be. And because you have to understand also that I was angry at this point, like a lot of kids, and it was a great time to be angry, because there are phases in America where there's political situations that are happening where if you know nothing about politics, you can still hook on to something. And I, like a lot of kids, hooked on to the Bush administration as, I can hate this. And it was a great time to hate something.
It was a great administration for punk rock.
Exactly. And you had on television, you had The Daily Show was at its height. And I've always had a deep love of comedy, stand-up comedy. Most people don't know that I don't listen to a lot of music. I listen to a lot more stand-up comedy that I listen to.
Who's your favorites before we digress? I don't want to digress too far down this, but who's your favorites? Just curious.
I used to be really into the more aggressive, like Bill Hicks, the more aggressive stuff. Oh,
sure.
But, the older I get, I like just funny stuff. That's why I like Louis C.K. But, Bill Hicks, David Cross, Louis, Patton Oswalt's always been great. I like Paul F. Tompkins. Just the basic kind of that early 90s alternative comedian scene, the Mr. Show dudes and everything.
Because you did the Funny or Die thing.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if that was something, there's a connection there. Like, we're going to see more of that somewhere down the road, maybe? You're going to start.
I write stand-up sometimes. My cousin does stand-up sets, and I write some of his sets.
Really?
Like, I'm not. Everybody that I know in the comedy community always tells me I should do stand-up just because to do it for the first time. But I'm too, like, the thing I always tell people, nobody wants to fucking see me do comedy, man. Like, nobody, that's, you know what I mean? Like, the reason I love comedians is that there's something about them that is so much more vulnerable. And like, there's something about a guy who is sweating his ass off and, 70 pounds overweight and is angry than like the skinny rock and roll guy. Like, nobody gives a shit about my problems. Like, it doesn't, even if I am genuine, an audience isn't going to read that. I can go on stage and give aggression and anger, and then I can also smile at people on stage and make them feel empowered. But I can't do that in comedy. So I don't know how. That's why I like doing the improv bits like we do with the show that I produce with my cousin, or writing stand-up for stuff he does or friends do, because I can still get that out, but it's not disingenuous. And the one thing I hate, regardless of whether it's self-inflicted or not, is something that's super disingenuous.
It's interesting that because usually a singer, it sometimes can be kind of like that is their world, and they'll get pulled into doing acting, they'll get pulled into other things where they'll be performing, but they still singing, and there's just something about that world that is very comforting to them, and it's not just familiar, but there's just something like, I know I can control this, but outside that I can't control it.
We haven't done anything about it yet, but my cousin and I are writing a screenplay that based on what's funny is, okay, so he will. We like to view the communities, because he's involved in the comedy community in LA and I'm a musician, and we like to cross the two things. Like, I brought Danny came in and did from Ask Alexandria, did an episode on, like, I like to bring people in from our world, and guys in my band have done it. But we always joke that if someone in the music world that has had success comes in and works on our show, that's immediately the best thing in the episode everybody talks about. But the ancillary people in the show who have been struggling for years in acting and went to AMDA and all this, nobody cares that they're there. So, and it's not because they are, it's just that there's a certain the nature of fans of music. It's a
Guest
little bit more
appearances.
passionate.
Yeah, sure.
So we're working on a screenplay about the idea that it's a kind of a fictionalized version of both of us, where it's a documentary crew. We're following two people, and you don't realize that they're involved at all until the middle. But it basically starts with following the life of this stand-up who's struggling and failing, and playing the fucking Red Lobster or whatever, and nobody pays attention. And then it cuts to me. My character is just sitting one day in a room and eating popcorn. And like, I think I'd like to do stand up. And then like immediately it's just like Russell Brand style. I'm on the billboards and people love it. But I don't do stand up at all. I just go and tell jokes. But I'm just like cool, and everybody loves it. And then you just keep cutting back and forth, and then eventually you realize these people are related and they've had the same genetic makeup, but for some reason one person was able to just always push ahead, which to me that's what makes a comedian funny, is when they're never able just to get to, and this is why Dane Cook wasn't able to keep anything in my estimation, because I think a lot of Dane Cook jokes were funny. I know that people thought he was cheesy or whatever, but I think there has to be a struggle for someone to love a comedian. In the same way that a punk rock band, Anti-Flag or somebody, has to have a struggle. And when that struggle is gone, it's very hard for people to continue to be so passionate about them.
Well, plus, I think there could be something debated that the comedian can't be the heartthrob. Right. And I think when they started marketing Dane Cook as like this hot, single sexy guy and stuff, I think is when it started falling apart for him, because you can't be that perfect. You have to be the nerd. You have to be the one that's slightly defective, or the one that never really gets the girl in the end and stuff like that. I mean, they all want the Chaplin ending, going down the street with the girl, but that's very few and far between.
Can't do it because it ruins the reason why Woody Allen is still making movies and all this, is because there's a certain, you have to understand something. You can't be, they always have to, and this is the one thing about comedy that I love more than anything that not a lot of people understand, is you always have to be the fool, no matter what it is. And I hate whenever Joe and I will do a scene where I have to be the straight guy, because I know that I'm not getting the laugh there. And that's why I don't mind debasing myself. Like, I'm a terrible version of myself in that show because I love being the fool.
Could you ever seriously mock yourself?
I think the only distinction between seeing what I like when I'm playing myself in this show, it's that like a 1 degree of separation, because it's still the character version of myself. The version of me that's an average Joe would do that. But I think it'd be a lot harder to try to directly go like in a route of making a spoof on who I really am, because it's a little too sacred in a way. And
it's like that movie This Is the End that came out, and all the actors were coming in and basically making fun of themselves in a way, and it kind of like brought in humility a lot for them. And if you read the Rotten Tomatoes reviews for that movie, all the actors get a lot of props for like basically saying, wow, like they actually made fun of themselves, or like their persona.
But that's a little bit even closer, and that's why I would agree that I would give them some form of props, so to speak, because it's not even, if what I'm doing in my little show is it's still a version of me. The audience knows that I'm not getting girls knocked up and killing them and sending them to Mexico. The audience knows that I don't have a drug addiction. The audience knows like that these are all things that you take as read going in, whereas we don't. The audience watching This Is the End, there's plenty of people who don't know whether or not, they like Jonah Hill is such a big, like, you don't know. And that's what I really loved about that, was they took it as this might be the real version of these people. Right. And not to say that, it's maybe, it's still a wink and a little bit of a slapstick thing, but it's still a look behind the curtain enough, which is something that I've never done that I think would be interesting.
So girls are hanging outside your house, being creeps, listening to you, being stalkers, and listening to you sing. And as you kind of mentioned briefly, you at the time, which I thought was actually just so, it's such a really great moment in your life that you shared with the story where you built the KISS stage sets and that sort of thing. What else did you, what other things like that you did, or was that kind of like that it?
It was constant, man. Because I used to love, the thing was like, I loved having something tangible, and whatever it was in forms, in any kind of art form that I could make that was, I don't know if it was a control thing, but like I liked that I could do something that was right here and the world couldn't tell me that I couldn't do it. And whether I was action figures or whatever else, I liked that I could build a stage the way I wanted it to. And, it just felt more like this is what I'm going to do on a larger scale, or this is what I want to do when I grow up or whatever, but it was doing it immediately. Because a lot of kids dream of being in a band, or they have the acoustic guitar with the string over it, and there's the pictures of them. But like I wanted to be, it was pain in the ass constantly that I couldn't be a rock star at age 6. You know, like it was always from the time I was old enough to know what that was. It was constantly like, just come on. Can I just be a little bit like, are you going to take me seriously yet? And then literally from 13 on, it was like, just kept, are you guys ready yet? I'm too young. Are you ready yet? Can I do this now? Can I play music now? And so it was just waiting all the time. So that was something that I could do when I was a kid, building the stages and putting together set lists for what the band might play. And that was all stuff that I could do. And even though it wasn't real, I could lose myself in that world, and I could close my eyes, and I felt like this was something that was a show, because I couldn't, too young to go to shows, I could go to Kiss shows, but I couldn't go to the shows that I wanted to. If Social Distortion came through town, I couldn't go as a 7-year-old or whatever, like these are things I couldn't do. So I had control of that. So then when I got older, it became doing it on the scale of, now I was the action figure in a sense. Like I would build fake grids in my room with scaffolding, and you saw like my ceiling on my room was all these bands that I wanted, and I would just sit and play. And then I met a couple kids, and I'd move down to the garage and we'd play. And it was almost in a way, it was substituting the action figures for me, like, because nobody's watching me do it, but it still felt important.
Sure,
you know?
Sure. Do you think, as the band started going, you've got the world in you have like a vision in your head of how you want it to go and how you see it going and stuff like that, and how that world of rock and roll and the music industry and stuff is. And when was the first like wake up call where like, boom, you hit reality? Like, wow, this isn't really like how I thought it would be. Like the industry just like either hit you, or you found that maybe it wasn't so easy, or something like that.
The thing you have to understand is that I was, it wasn't until maybe in the last 4 to 5 years that I really started to have any sense of humility or any kind of understanding of what was happening around me. I was always so blinders, straightforward. People would say things, throw things at me. We would have disappointments. We would, like anybody, you play a show, nobody's there, you don't get paid. Somebody steals money from you, people steal your gear, all the stuff that bands go through. But I was always like, well, that's just a thing that's happening. It doesn't matter. That's what happened now. It won't happen tomorrow.
Keep going. Yeah.
It wasn't until later, like probably once Black Veil Brides had become an established band, that I started to really realize something could happen wrong. Because in those early days, it was so important to me. It's almost like a fight or flight thing, but a constant. I couldn't let anything negative affect me, because that it would, I had this abiding belief that it would eat me alive if I let something in at all. Which is where, sort of that cross section of like, am I going to be the lead singer in a band, or am I becoming some sort of like, weird dream militant guy that's like, am I ever going to make friends? Is anybody like, and it wasn't, that is probably the thing of my life that is the strangest section, is that first, the last year of when I started actually like local touring from 16 to 17, doing regional touring in the area and losing my ass on money and getting, stuck places and have to stay in basements and all that, to then coming out to LA and having no one, no friends, nobody, and having to start all over again. So, I think that that's probably the first time that I ever started to think at all about it, because I realized that I had not done anything towards keeping. I didn't care, because the people around me were shit. They wound up suing me later anyway. Like, they were shitty people anyway. So it wasn't like I lost out on opportunities to make friends, but I think the big thing is I didn't give a shit about people's personalities as long as they would play music in my band and dress the way that I wanted them to and all that. And so in that regard, the blinders didn't serve me well, because I didn't pay attention to signs that maybe I shouldn't be around this person. And that stayed on until 2010 even, where I was not paying attention to the signs of what people are, or knowing that they seemingly were not good people for me or to be around. But I didn't care, because it was all towards this thing, and goddamn, I got to reach this thing.
Sure.
Do you,
I'm still kind of curious about it, because I kind of felt like it wasn't really fully answered in the story, but there's a lot of kids, especially in the Midwest, and you meet them every day on the road, where they have that dream. They want to go to New York. They want to go to LA, right? And they want to be, or maybe Nashville now, and they want to become the big singer or star or whatever the thing is, but they're afraid.
I didn't want to go to LA. I had no idea about
really?
LA. As a kid, my aspiration was never to be in New York or LA. I could be from Cincinnati and be rocks. I didn't know that that was a thing. It wasn't until I went to Los Angeles on a completely unrelated thing, which was I started going to performing arts school, and they told me that I was good at, acting and everything, and that maybe you should audition for these people that we have come and are the talent agents for Los Angeles. whatever, didn't know anything about it. So I did a monologue from Harvey, which was my favorite.
Really?
Yeah, Jimmy Stewart was my favorite when I was younger. I wanted to be like Jimmy Stewart in some capacity. But I did a monologue from Harvey, and they liked it and took me back to the little like office area and had me call my mom, and they're like, we think he could be a star. And my mom, they're like, all right, whatever. Like, fortunately, my parents are smart enough to not be duped into all the things that all these people get duped into. But my mom goes, here, look, if you really believe that, I have like 3 weeks of vacation time. I'm willing to take that vacation time, but you know, if you think we can do it, we've got a little bit of money saved. We were going to go on a vacation, but this is my kid's passion. Like we'll do this. So my dad had to stay back home. My mom and I went out to LA. Well, first we went to Dallas for some reason. First, that's always the pit stop. There's like the thing you have to go to first to pay a bunch more money, so that I could win a bunch of trophies or something. Like I was,
What'd you have to do there?
I became the top male model and top actor at the Mike Beatty Expo, which is just a way of losing money on the way to LA. Yeah. Just basically you're just buying yourself. But like,
what did you do, Harvey, for that too?
Yeah, and then I sang Green Day "Time of Your Life" and made little girls swoon, and that's when made and that's
is there
when,
a video of that? Your mom's got a video.
There has to be somewhere. But that's when the people, because the Mike Beatty Expo was where these talent scouts really were, and so they take you there, and you learn that the people who are at your school have nothing to do with it. They're just the conduit, and now there's more money to be had. So I get all these people, we're going to make you a star, we're going to do all this. And there was just like a couple people who were like, okay, look, again, we have 3 weeks. You've got 2 weeks and some days left. Here you go. Give it a shot. So we got out to LA, and my mom's like, okay, what we can do is I think that we can try to work with your school. They're performing arts school. I can stay out here a little bit longer. We can't stay out too long, but we can do like 2 months. And at the most.
Which is not a bad amount of time, right?
It's nowhere near what the people go out. I mean, 6 months is the pilot season thing where people go stay at Oakwood, and you've seen I don't know if you've seen the documentaries, like the most like
sure. Yeah.
sad. That's where the heartache comes from. But we had 2 months, and I had no idea how to audition for things. I had no idea what I was doing, and I didn't really want to be an actor. I wanted to be in bands, but it was like, am I ready yet? No. Okay, I'll do this. Like nobody wants to take me seriously in
performing.
bands. Yeah.
Right.
So I want to be on a stage. I want to do something. And immediately people started paying attention to, it's so funny when you aren't aware of what you're supposed to be doing, how much that seems revolutionary. Like, and when you don't know that you're supposed to be, all right, so I'll give you an example. The first audition I ever went to, the dress code for it, because these auditions, everybody looks a certain way when they walk in there. The dress code said Midwest casual. I'm from the Midwest. This is what I look like. This is my casual. I come in and they're like, whoa, look at rock and roll guy. But I had no idea. So I started getting attention as being edgy. That was my new thing. I'm edgy. And I was a kid. I didn't dress, wasn't wearing like, Black Veil Bride Set the World on Fire clothes. I was a black like Guns N' Roses shirt and jeans.
You were Johnny
jeans.
Depp.
Yeah, it wasn't anything.
Yeah.
But that was edgy. And so I started getting attention for that. And I booked.
Typecast?
No, but just anything. Like I started booking stuff all the time. I was getting callbacks all the time. I got 2 commercials right away. I became the AT&T guy. I did a thing with Tony Kaye from American History X for the meth commercial that everybody's seen. Like I was doing crazy. And then it was the end of the 2 months, and we're like, okay, well, we have to go back home now. And I have an agent manager. They're like, what? You're doing, like, kids don't do this. And but like, yeah, but I don't really want to, like, thank you so much, but like we don't have the money to be out here, and we're going to go back home now. And thank you, though, for the experience. But at that point, being in Los Angeles, the one thing I did hold on to is, even though I didn't enjoy the acting, I started to see the remnants of the rock and roll culture. And I started to, I realized that I would go down to Hollywood Boulevard and I'd see people that kind of look like me. And it wasn't just in the sketchy neighborhoods or just,
right.
It wasn't just the crust punks that were hanging on outside of the college. Like it was
Sure.
like people that were interesting looking. And, I think it was to see people with like, the damn shirts on or something was weird because I'd never seen that before my whole life.
Did you feel part of like, this is the pot, this was the crowd that you meant to be with, or did you feel intimidated by them a little bit?
I liked it. It was exciting. I never cared about LA. I didn't have that, gotta be in Hollywood thing. Like Hollywood was nothing to me. It was, cause to me it was like, Kiss wasn't from New York or whatever. They were just, right. So they started here and then they were American.
Right.
And that was always my goal, was to be America, USA. Like I wanted to be, wherever I was from, I was still the biggest thing when I was little. And I didn't learn about the world. I didn't know that you could be big in other countries. When I was a little kid, you're like, I want to be that.
Right.
Not like, to still, I think it's so weird because I look at it as a kid and like I wanted to be equal parts like political, like born in the USA kind of Bruce Springsteen and Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley when I was real little. And then the older I got, it became less and less about the showman and the fame and everything. It was like, I want to be interesting and important. Anyway, so I went to LA and I really loved it. And then that's when I had that fall in love with Hollywood. And that's when I became obsessed with going back. And I would, the most negative thing that happened to me is that we flew back from LA for the first time. And I'm expecting to go back to my school, the performing arts school that I got into. That is my favorite. It's my favorite place in the world. It meant everything to me. When I try to like explain to people that was the first time in my entire life. It was a 2-year period where I was dating girls. I was cool. Like I got along. I got to perform. People liked me. It was amazing. And then they changed artistic directors, and I got back from LA, and I go, guys, I just did all this performing stuff in LA. Like I can't wait to come back to school. Nope. Not allowed in. We changed our policy. You can't leave school for 3 months to try to come back. Are you kidding me? No way. And
so you left during the school year. It wasn't.
But we had agreed with the previous art director that I was going to go out, and they actually sent me work to do out there. But the new guy came in and budget cuts. He didn't want to have to bring kids back in. So I was doing schoolwork and sending it in, and then while I was gone in that 2 months, they changed people who was in charge of that decision, and he decided that when I got back, you're done. And there's never been anything that when I was little that was more crushing for me. But that is when, so I go, what the hell am I going to do? Like, this is the only place that I've ever belonged. Like, I don't want to go back to fucking Delhi and sit in my room and be sad. And then that's when I discovered MySpace and the internet and all that. And that's when I was like, wow, there's all these people in the world who feel like me. And there was like almost an entire school year period there where I would just sit. And that's when I started a MySpace page, and I was taking pictures of myself and all that shit, but it was like fun. It was like all these people like this shit too. Like people, you like Tiger Army? I thought only I liked,
Right.
So,
well, you kind of became, well, at least it was described, kind of somewhat of a, I don't know, pseudo, not a celebrity, but like you started building up and like people started following you like crazier and crazier.
Right. And it was and I never understood why.
And you didn't have a band at that point.
From. No. Well, I had.
Or did you?
No, yeah. No, I didn't. That was right when I started. So when I first started, I think it was just the look. I was an interesting looking kid, and that's before it was the very beginnings of what became the whole like scene kid thing. But what I was doing at the time, I was estimating I thought I looked like Sam Hain. I didn't know that was going to become, the thing. So then of course when that happened, I was like, well, fine, I'll be important in this world, I guess. Like I've always looked this way, so if you guys want to, if you're gonna do it too, I guess I'll be the king of you. I don't.
Right. Yeah. Right. Just one of the cool things that if you go on IMDb, right, and you hang on IMDb, and one of the best parts about IMDb is the trivia part, right, and it's all, and the stuff that they usually talk about is like the stuff that the things that almost happened. Or the things that kind of did happen that people don't like. So you're back this about 5 minutes, and you're back in Hollywood, and you're getting thrown all these commercials and all this other stuff. What are the things you turned down?
Being a rock and roll guy who was excited to meet Hannah Montana.
Okay.
I was offered a guest spot on Hannah Montana as someone who was very excited to meet Hannah Montana, but it was supposed to be like a rock and roll looking guy, and I was gonna like be her biggest fan. There was the episode was like she goes to the radio station, and then there's like a guy who comes in, and obviously it wasn't a real role, but it was like I can't do that. I don't even know what this is, but I can't.
You couldn't,
because what they do is with that stuff they siphon it out in different directions. So the kids go in to audition for a general thing, and then if they like you, a 14-year-old will go have a general meeting with the head of Disney or something, and they'll look at you and they'll pick you apart. It's insane. They'll pick you apart and judge you and decide what you're going to be. And then in a week and a half, if they really like you, they'll give you a chance to audition for something. And again, it's not ever made specific until they tell you what they think you're right for, but you just keep reading the same thing over and over again. So I got a general meeting with Disney, because I was going to, in their estimation, because they always have their lines. You can be like our edgy guy that we have, but we want to start you low first. So here's the Hannah Montana. That's all right, guys. Like thank you. It's not my thing. And thank God, because that's not something I'm glad that the things I did do, well, the AT&T thing's a little silly, but I didn't do anything that was ridiculous. The Montana meth thing I'm proud of, because it's fucking crazy.
Right.
Ed French, who did the makeup for Batman Returns, did all my crazy makeup. Tony Kaye directed it. Like that's for a random like commercial. It's the most credibility based commercial I can imagine. Like, which is it wasn't intentional, but I think that the reason that I ever got cast in that was because I was that kind of weirdo, and they were like, "Oh, we want one of you." Actually, I forgot the story on that is pretty funny. So. One of the things that you do when you're one of those kids that goes to Hollywood is you have to always be perfect all the time. People ask you questions, you have to know exactly how to answer them, and you have to answer in the most goddamn that kid's cute way possible all the time. And I didn't know any of that shit. I didn't know that going there. So the audition for the first round of auditions for the meth commercial was at a coffee shop, and they line everybody up, and they go down the line and they go, "Hey, have you guys ever had any experience with anyone using drugs in your life?" Go down the line. "No, sir. Everyone I know is rainbows." And they come to me and I go, "Well, yeah." And they're like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've met some drug addicts. Do you have any stories?" And I just started telling stories. Like, yeah, I had a friend who did meth actually, wound up, but we didn't know where he was. He didn't come to school for like 4 days. He found him in a park. He dated my friend, I'm just saying, I'm just going on. And all these kids are like, "What is he doing?" And like kids are snickering, like this kid's shooting himself in the foot. And then the next day I got a call like, "That was really awesome," because like we see these pretentious kids all day long, every day. And I was like, I didn't even know. You asked me a question. I was just telling you the answer to it. I didn't know I was supposed to be like sunshine, smiles, everything's perfect, Midwest, whatever. Like they're all from Texas too, all those kids. They're always like, even if they aren't from Texas, they always say that they're, for some reason, it's the best thing to be from Dallas when you're in Hollywood. To play acoustic guitar terribly, wear sandals, and be from Dallas, it's a surefire way. And nothing against people from Dallas. If you aren't from Dallas and you go to Hollywood, say you're from Dallas. They all love it. You'll get cast in a million things.
I think this is the name of your How to Hollywood book is Say You're from Dallas.
Say You're from Dallas, exactly.
Andy Biersack.
That's the name of my memoirs. I like to name memoirs. That's one of my hobbies. I never will have a memoir that's named any of these things, but if I can like funny memoir names are my favorite.
Come on, you got.
I can't think. There's so many. There's so many, man. I do them for my friends too, and they're usually personal jokes, so I don't want to expose.
Right, I get all that. Yeah, right.
But yeah, there you go.
So you've been out in Hollywood now, and you've been and Juliet comes from. She's been really deeply involved in all that as well lately, and. So do you see these kids that are basically were you?
So what happened was, me being the weird kid or whatever, I started to meet girls, and girls were the way into me wanting to come back to Hollywood. And that's the weirdest thing that I find is when I look at what the Hollywood world is, you start to see all these kids, dating, and there's these clusters of kids that all hang out together. And I was weirdly part of that. And a lot of the people that I was around a lot of them now are very successful. And that's, however, my way into wanting to come back to LA was dating these girls who are now, a lot of them are actually very successful actresses. Haven't seen them in years, but I was like, I have to go back and see girls. Because suddenly now, you have to understand that, again, I had never realized how much I loved women until they wanted to pay attention to me. And I'm like, well, this is fantastic. Isn't this great how this works out? You think I'm interesting and James Dean-like, and I like your boobs. Like, isn't this awesome? So that was, and then that's the only reason I ever went back to LA was girls. I was like, I'm going to be one of those, like, I'm going to be the Sunset Strip dude, and I'm going to hang out with all the girls.
Is that where you hung out? On the strip there? Was there like
no, I wanted
a venue
to.
or a restaurant?
Oh, no, man, I couldn't go down there. I didn't know, people didn't even want me down there. I hung out in like South Fairfax and Little Ethiopia, in places that kids were skateboarding, and like there was, the Sunset Strip thing didn't occur to me until I wanted to go do that, but it didn't occur to me to go down there until I had like, I don't know, people don't go down there and do anything.
Right.
People go down there when they have a band or they want to be seen by people as looking cool. And I was not ready for that when I first started coming to LA. And really, to be honest with you, if I can backtrack a little bit.
Sure.
I started dating a girl who was an actress. And that is really the way that I started coming back to Los Angeles. And because I was able to, by the time I'm 16, I have a band back home I'm playing local shows called Biersack, with a 55-year-old drummer and like just random, it looked like the UN, just and me with giant fucking crazy kid hair and like, eye makeup like this, and I'm wearing like tuxedo, just the most random outfits, batting gloves and tuxedos with hair that's this tall, like experimental phase, to say the least. Matching my eyeshadows and my shoes.
Bowie would have been proud.
Yeah, see, there you go. But because of that, I'm starting to date these girls, and one girl in particular, she and I get serious, and she's an actress. So she is just turning 18. She's starting to make enough money that now she's going to move out of her parents' house, and she's going to get her own place, which is a huge thing for me, because now it allows for me to go visit someone and not have to like pay for hotels or whatever else. Like, and of course, I'm a kid. I'm in love with this girl. She's everything. I write her letters and
first love,
whatever. Yes, absolutely,
okay.
Absolutely.
Oh
first
yeah,
love.
then you're
sunk. So I need to be with her all the time.
Right.
So the reality, like all that stuff, the logistics of like now I get to stay somewhere, it didn't matter to me. I would have gone and stayed on her porch outside, but then she starts to starts to hook up with like dudes in bands that are successful bands. So eats my heart out. She's cheating on me, all this. But now I'm like, but wait, I have to go back out there. So now I'm a little guilty of this. In my head, I'm starting to think like, man, what can I do, to like get out there? So we're going to make amends. We'll fix the relationship. So we fix the relationship. I go out, I start living with her. We hate each other. We're kids, I do stupid shit to her. She does stupid shit to me. It's a terrible relationship because we don't know how to do it. We're both kids that shouldn't be living alone yet, but are trying to. But because of that, if it wasn't for her and for all the shit that we went through in our life, and all the stuff that maybe she did to me or I did to her, if it wasn't for her and her giving me the chance to stay somewhere, and loving me like she did for whatever, for what we did or what we didn't do. At the time, we cared a lot about each other. And if it wasn't for her, I would have never had the chance to really spend any time in Los Angeles. Sure. And so I'll always be thankful to her for that, because I know, and I didn't always know that when I was younger. I always tried to, no, I'm making my own way. But if it really wasn't for her, I would have never had these chances. And I would have never met half the people that I met early on that helped me in my early days.
Have you guys made up since
No, I haven't seen her in years.
Wow. So when you're doing all this stuff and you're like, so you were doing that, you were living with her in LA when you were 17, 18?
Mm-hmm. 17.
Where were your parents? Because by then you were out of the performing arts school.
Yeah,
so what were your parents?
There's a quick stopgap.
Yeah.
I'm out of the performing arts school. I'm homeschooled. I'm lonelier than hell.
That's right.
I gained like 50 pounds. Like I'm just a fat kid sitting on MySpace all day.
Prior to moving to LA.
Right. This is all. We'll go back like a year and a half. So I'm completely alone, just eating saltines and sad because I have no social interaction. Because now I've tasted it. When I was young, I didn't care.
Saltines and sad. There's an album title.
There you go. That's another memoir. The Fat Years.
At least a DVD.
Yeah, Andy
at least.
Biersack, The Fat Years. It's just a static shot camera of me getting fat. So I'm sad, and now I've tasted social interaction, which I never cared about when I was younger. But now I've know what it's like to meet people, and I know girls and all this. And I go to my parents and I say, look, I don't know what this means, but I think I want to go to regular high school. Now, I wish this is one of those times where it would be nice to have like a time cop situation where I could go back and just punch myself in the face, because I didn't realize that meant constant misery. And because you have to understand that since I was a little kid getting beat up in school and Catholic school and all that, I have not experienced bullying for a 4-year period, because I've gone to fairyland. I was in a performing arts school where I was the only guy that girls could talk to, because all the other dudes were hanging out with each other there. I was at a performing, you know what I mean? So I'm the only choice.
Right.
By default, I'm the manliest dude there, and I'm dressing like Alex from A Clockwork Orange on a Wednesday to go to school. Like, but all the girls are like, well, fuck it, I guess this is what we got. So I'm already there. And then I go to LA and I'm like edgy guy, and girls like me there because they're, a little bit more open-minded. I'm different. I'm like you said, I'm like the fucking baby Johnny Depp to them. So then I go back home and I'm on MySpace, and MySpace people. So I have not experienced what it's like to just go hang out with the football players and all that in a very long time. And I'm ill prepared, to say the least. I'm like first day of school, like eyeshadow, it's all great. I'm all ready. I've got my Misfit shirt on, all stoked. Head in, just hitting the back of the head immediately. Like, oh, really? That's right. I forgot about this. And not only have I not gone to school in a long time, I didn't do any of my schoolwork in homeschool. So I've now been put into like freshman classes. So I'm now a junior or whatever, and I'm in nothing but freshman classes. And just miserable. I was in I was tested by the state for mental retardation. By the way,
Really?
yes, achieved the highest test score that they had you could ever get. And I had to explain to them
That needs to be put on your Wikipedia.
it's not because I'm retarded. I just am lazy. It's not. I'm smart enough to do this. But what I'm trying to say to you is that I don't need to know about the Magna Carta. It's never going to affect me. Do you know how many times I'm ever going to use algebra? Never. But here you test me, and I did it, and whatever. So they put me in a class for math. My mathematics class was me and a kid who, to his credit, he didn't know that it was happening, but all he did was just yell obscenities at the wall and punch it over and over again. So it's me and a guy just saying, fuck you, wall, and punching it over and over again. His name was Jimmy. Me and Jimmy just hanging out.
Future TM, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Me and Jimmy just hanging out with a woman who's just hungover or currently drinking, because who gives a shit? It's the weird goth kid and Jimmy. Like, they're not going to pay attention. So, and we do like 4th grade math, and then we leave. And like, you have to understand that for someone like me, I am now in a spiraling like circle of hate, because I'm not being stimulated mentally at all, and everyone around me hates me and thinks I'm the biggest, whatever, fag, whatever. So I start to fight people. That was my thing. I started to fight. I got into being aggressive because I needed to defend myself and I needed to fill my time somehow. So for the first time in my life, I'm now not only in trouble for being weird or different or smoking cigarettes or whatever. Now I'm getting in trouble because I'm physically getting into fights all the time because I have to learn to defend myself. But it is at this time that I start to separate. Where when I was a little kid, I would get bullied and made fun of, and on the same ways that when I was the age of a lot of the kids, that the younger audience that we have, and I understand how depressing that could be. But if I didn't go back to high school in that time, and I didn't face that bullying on a different scale, I would have never been able to turn the corner and realize how important it is to be mindful of your own self strength. And that is very important in my life. The fact that I went back and I learned how to fight, and I learned how to fight for myself, that's when I started to write songs. Because I'd always written dumb songs. That's when I started to write real songs. That's when I wasn't just copying Alkaline Trio songs. That's when I started to write things about what I was feeling. And if it wasn't for that, I would have never had what I had going into LA. I would have never had that feeling. I would have never had the interest in the army aspect and all that stuff, because I almost fell out of that for a little while, because I got to have fun and I got to be treated like a normal person. And I'm not saying that people should have to go through the strife, but in my situation, I don't think I'd have the career that I have if it wasn't for me learning that very key point of fighting for myself.
How were the teachers at the school? Were they blaming you for causing it?
Oh yeah, all the time. I would get kicked out for the silliest things. Like, I would have striped socks on and I would get suspended. It went on forever, but I always got blamed because I was weird. They didn't want me around there. They didn't want me there. So what they did was they kicked me out of the regular high school. And this is where it became awesome, because they put me into a trailer about 1.5 miles off of the high school campus. And it is where they sent the kids who maybe had recently murdered someone, or, like all of the kids who came out of juvenile detention but needed to be educated got put into this trailer. And I felt a little bit more at home there. I was like, I've never raped anybody, but I feel like you and I could talk, because they hate you and they hate me. Like, I don't want to hang out with you after this, but we can sit together. Right. And the assignments were ridiculous. This is a real assignment that they gave us because they're afraid of these kids. Right. So the guy comes in and he goes, hey, and he puts on 2 music videos. Toby Keith, We'll Put a Boot in Your Ass, It's the American Way, or whatever that, and Alan Jackson, Where Were You When the World Stopped Turning? We have to watch those both. And he goes, all right, now compare and contrast these 2 music videos and how these 2 write patriotic songs, and then leaves the room. And we're all like, fuck this, no one's doing this. And so, but I'm not, I was never like I guess of all those people, I was trying to consider my way of how I can get out of it. And so then like, maybe I did that for like a couple weeks, and then I go like, well, fuck, they don't care if I'm there. I'm just going to drive to Dunkin' Donuts, drive to the place, listen to music, smoke cigarettes in my car, read AP or whatever else I could find, and then leave. When the traffic from the school leaves, I'll come back and they'll call my parents and tell them I'm there. They don't fucking care. And so over time, I start to realize that it doesn't matter even if I drive there. So I'm becoming less and less attached, because it doesn't, at the end of the day, I'm not going to graduate high school is where this is going. I'm realizing in my head that I don't have what it takes to care about I Am Legend like on film with Will Smith and then write a report about it, because they've given up on me. The school system has given up on me. They don't think I'm going to learn. I stand no chance of learning anything for the rest of my academic career. I already know more than any of these fucking people anyway, because I actually bothered to pay attention to the things around me. Why do I do this? I'm done. And I explain this to my parents, and they don't really fight me on it, because they know how sad things have gotten. Like to go from when I was in SCPA, which is the performing arts school where I loved learning and I loved all that, to now it's a couple years later and I'm literally comparing and contrasting country music videos on an academic level. Like even as a parent, you got to be like, well, and I've always been a smart kid, so they couldn't really fight me too much on that. They knew that I was going to find education on my own. I don't love that I dropped out of high school, but I think high school dropped me off. I don't think that they cared about me anymore. I have a strong case, and I've talked to many teachers that I'm friends with now, where if you look at my situation, they gave up on me in a way that I had no choice, and I wanted to start my life. And I could have stayed there and gotten my whatever, but I needed to be stimulated more. And that's when I said, okay, I'm going to go to LA full time. I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry, guys. I love you. I have to go. And there was a little bit of fighting back and forth. And they said, when you turn 18, you can go full time. We can't really stop you then. So it was, I think, the December 28th or something. But, I turned 18 on the 26th. I got a cheap flight, because I would always have to fly out of wherever, like Dayton or whatever, because I couldn't afford to fly out of Cincinnati. So I got a flight out of Dayton. I took all my stuff. My mom was still pretending that this was just another one of my 2-week visits where I was going to go see my girlfriend and I'd come back.
Yeah, she said something like that in the story. She's like, she expected you to be back.
Yeah. But I think my dad and I got into a fight like we always did. And I think he could, because usually he knew that, he wanted to, I guess he had to get in his last, whatever dad thing. And I was like, I'm not coming back, right? He's like, no, whatever. And then I got my shit and left, and I never went back. I never did until, literally when I sent you that message a couple weeks ago and saying Cincinnati, it's the first time I've spent any time in Cincinnati since my grandfather's funeral for a day, the 2 times we played Warped Tour. That's it.
How was that?
My grandfather's funeral or
No, not your grandfather's funeral.
You can imagine how one went.
No, just
wasn't my favorite day.
Because when you've been away from your hometown for a while and you go back, you do have this all of a sudden new sense of objectivity you didn't have before.
First Warped Tour was terrible because all the assholes came out. You have to understand that Black Veil Brides, when I first started, it was hated strongly because I was I was egotistical and opinionated, and I thought I could stop all the shit around me. I thought that I was going to be that punk rock force that was going to do something. So, there was a huge Courage Crew scene, and they would beat up my friends, sure. and I would go on stage and say, fuck the Courage Crew. Now, that's not something that you should do as a 15-year-old with a completely defenseless 15. But I thought that I was, I thought saying stuff like that would make people feel something, and it did. Not the greatest thing. It made them want to beat up my parents and cover my house and shit and whatever. So I dealt with a lot because of that. But I thought it was wrong. I thought it was wrong that I watched a kid's teeth get kicked out because he smoked a cigarette at a party. I thought it was wrong that because I wore makeup and drank a Coca-Cola that had energy in it, that I was going to get shit thrown at me, from across the street. I just thought that shit, it was bullying to me. It was bullying, and it felt nothing like what I understood there. Because I always was into researching stuff. So I'm like, all right, what's Fugazi? And I'll look up Minor Threat, and I'll find out what is this about. And I was like, these are just fucking jock bullies who have now found something that they're attaching themselves to. It has nothing to do with any of that. There's no community here. This is just mean, just being mean for the sake of it, and then saying, oh, but I got the edge. It's not, you're just being a dick and then saying that you're part of the dick club. That's it. It's not fair. So that created a lot of hatred. And then through that, those kids kind of died off. The Courage Crew thing kind of died down in Cincinnati, but there was still a lot of residual, let's fuck the makeup faggy band, because that was it. We were the only one. And this is before, bands like Escape the Fate started getting really popular, or bands like, Aiden or all these. This is just before that, because they were popular in certain areas, but not where this is before our scene kind of got all that stuff. So I was the sole band in that area that was doing anything with the makeup or the hair, or any kind of glam nature to it, or any kind of, covering Misfit songs or whatever. So that caused a lot of hatred, and all those people stayed around long enough. And amazingly, we're talking about now, it was 2011 was the first time we rolled through there again. And they were there in full force. They were signs, fuck you, in fact, the makeup.
At Warped Tour.
Yeah, a lot. And
they went through all that
for years. They waited for me to come back, and I always joke that some people get met with the ticker tape parade, and I just get people throwing wads of shit in the air when I get back, And we were prepared for that this year with Warped Tour, and it's amazing what the success of the band has done, and what the positivity that we have with a lot of people have done. And it was raining, so we played the main stage. They moved it into the amphitheater. And I was like, fuck, now all these people are going to fucking pack into the amphitheater. It's going to be nothing but a shit show. I never get nervous for shows, but Dusty, who is a production assistant on Warped Tour, was standing backstage with me with Kevin there. And I was almost shaking. Like I was very nervous because I was afraid of I'm very combative. I was afraid of what I was going to do. I had to explain to Kevin, I was like, I don't want you to be upset with me, but I might get engaged in something today because if people come at me, particularly here, like there's nothing more re-stimulating for me than anything.
It's an old war, man.
Yeah. So I'm shaking and everything and go out on stage, and I didn't realize I couldn't see how well it was going. That's the only way I can say it is like, I literally couldn't. The whole amphitheater, by the way, is full and everyone is having the best time. Everyone knows all the songs. We're 3 songs into the set and I'm still talking to the audience like they hate me. Like I'm full on like aggressive, like
defense.
Fuck you. Yeah. Like I'm that Golden God speech level of like anger. And then I start to like, something clicked in me where I was like, man, and I actually apologized. I was like, wow, I'm sorry guys. Like I came out here on 10 because I expected something different and my whole life it's been this way. And just the word Cincinnati makes me feel this way. So I came out here expecting to have to fight my way and like very emotional. Like it was amazing for me. And then I jumped down on the grid to bring the mic out to the fans and tore my whole hand open, and I have a black leather glove on and it collects like probably a pint of blood in this glove, and I smack myself in the head on stage and then there's just blood everywhere. So now the audience is freaking out. I'm covered in blood and everyone's it was like this weird cathartic like tribal experience. And it's like, and then we did In the End, which is the song that I wrote about my grandfather, and my mom is there filming it. And to see the amphitheater that I first saw Kiss at when I was a little kid, and I saw Aerosmith and Motley Crue and all these, the big shed bands, full of people, I mean totally full, singing In the End, was really cool. And that to me I was able to close a chapter in my life that I never would have been able to before. It was awesome. It really was important to me. It was the biggest and most cathartic thing that could have happened, because now I was able to go back home. Like I would have never done that. I was too angsty and too nervous to go back home years before. But after that show on Warped Tour, I wanted to go visit my parents and I wasn't afraid to go around. I didn't think I was going to have to defend myself. It's so funny, as a kid, I never knew that you guys were located here.
In Cleveland. I think you said that to me one time.
Yeah, it would have been such a crazy revelation to me. Like I think I figured it out once. I remember there was like a little card that had like a mailing address on something, and I was like, what? It says Ohio on that. But then I think as a kid I rationalized, I was like, maybe they just have like Ohio has like a place that they printed or something. I was like, there's no way this is based out of Ohio. You know what I mean? Like, because as a kid you don't realize like that there's other. I didn't even know what Cleveland is, but I only been to Cleveland a few times. But it was like, to me, Ohio was this big. So
the first time that you took the band outside of Cincinnati area, was there a Cleveland gig on that one? Did you do like Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Detroit, like that, or did you do like Toledo, Sandusky,
not until
Youngstown?
I think it was always like weird places like that. Like Dayton would be the farthest in terms of a real city, but it wasn't until 2009 when I had LA version of the band come back and do our first tour as that band that we played. The first show we ever played was at Peabody's.
Ah, okay. I used to ask this early on in the series, and I don't ask it because it was very few that musicians get it, but I kind of wonder if you would. But all this time touring, you've toured the world, right? But United States, do you ever remember that one day, maybe it was a day off, or maybe it was before the gig or after the gig or and traveling or something like that, where you just kind of felt like, wow, if there's anything that's like a slice of Americana, I just saw it or experienced it?
I don't even know if it was specifically that as much as the first time we ever toured in England, and it was the first day that we got to come back to the United States. And I've said this a million times, I've never had a greater appreciation. I never was, growing up, I wasn't unpatriotic, I didn't hate America, but I never was so, I didn't have the country pride that everybody else had. I wasn't like the flag flying, whatever.
Toby Keith.
Yeah, but it wasn't until I had ever experienced being out of this country and then getting to come back to America and having I think we had a layover in, it might have been Dallas Fort Worth, which is kind of a hub, but just seeing like stuff again and food with salt in it and seeing American people and American girls and all the things that I hadn't seen in so long was crazy. It was it felt like that airport layover was like someone giving me just a minute of bliss, and because it was amazing. Because not to say that I don't enjoy the rest of the world, but I was unprepared, and I think everybody is the first time you leave the country for how different things can be, especially when you're touring in a van, in England and playing small places, because that shit can be a lot harder than doing it over here. It's not until you get to a certain level in other countries, it's a lot harder to tour. So our first time through as a support band in England, touring in a van, playing in rooms that were so small that we had to put the drum kit next to us again, but doing it in a capacity where you have none of the convenience. Because when you do that and your kids in America, you still have, Del Taco and like all this stuff. You have your conveniences, and you're on the road, and you have now you have a cell phone that works, all that stuff. But regardless whether you have that kind of stuff, it's still you have your conveniences. And when you don't have any of that, and you're playing these tiny places, and things are miserable, and you're in a Sprinter van with no oxygen in it, no windows, like. It's a real dark experience. So coming back to America for the first time, I fell in love with the U.S. And every time I've done it since, I love the United States. No matter how happy I am, I love touring abroad. I love England particularly. We have a great, rapport with in terms of the audience. I always love America more than anything when I come back home.
Is there a country that you still haven't synced in yet with? You're you love it. You want to be a part of it. You want to just blend in. Germany.
Yeah. Can't get it together there. Regardless of how well the shows go, I have some, and I always make the joke that I call all of Europe Germany. I go, oh, we're going back to Germany. They're like, Andy, there's a lot of countries around. Nope, German tour. That's all it is. Because the first couple of times we rolled through there, they did not give a shit. Just couldn't connect. And regardless of how well we do over there, there's still something in me that just I'm cautious on stage. So yeah, every time I go to Germany. There's some connection stuff that I was never really to get. My particularly in the early days of our shows, in club days, we'd only play 5 songs. The rest was just me giving speeches, very opinionated thing, When we did a tour supporting, the first tour we supported in the States, the only one that we ever got to do because nobody would take us on tour was the last from first to last tour they ever did. It was Sleeping with Sirens, us, and then we were the bands that were treated like shit on the tour, and but we were the people that were bringing all the people to the shows, and then they'd all leave, but we were treated like babies and idiots. And except from first to last were nice guys, but the other bands on the tour, I won't mention them, but they have now not done so well, or they are done, in fact, as bands. And anyway, which is sort of ironic, considering the fact that me and Kellen have sort of done considerable amount in our careers. And we actually done Warped Tour. We're joking about that tour this summer, but we would play maybe a total of 4 songs, and the rest is just me yelling opinions at people, Just, I have some shit to say, and I'm going to say it. And I didn't realize that would only allow for me another 5 minutes to play music. Andy, we have to play some songs here. You can't just yell your opinions at people. Now, we headline now, we'll do an hour and a half, and I don't talk as much as I used to back then because I enjoy playing music, but at the time it was just so much aggression I had to get out. It would be disingenuous now. I still occasionally go on my little rants, but
stage
at
is
the
therapy.
time I needed to say it.
Stage is therapy for a lot of singers.
Fans get upset. Andy doesn't talk as much because I don't ever want to say something I don't believe in, and I don't want it to become shtick,
Right.
If I'm not feeling it, I don't want to say. There's certain things that it's an unavoidable thing. You're doing it this night after night. There's certain Groundhog's Day elements. There are certain things that I say every single night because, in my estimation, it's part of the show. One rolls into the next. If I say, on this tour, before we're doing a Misfits cover in the set, and before that, I say that it's October. I say that, we all grow up loving Halloween, that, being kids that are kind of weird looking, variations on the words. And then I say, this is a song by the Ultimate Halloween Band. And that if you come see 3 shows on the tour, you're going to hear me say something very similar to that every single night. I can't go completely off the cuff all the time because I do have, a 50-minute set that I have to keep together. But having said that, in terms of long speeches and stuff, I don't like them to be, because they're like bands like Kiss and stuff. Paul Stanley always has the speech to say that it's been practiced and auditioned.
Sure.
And everything else, but it's not for me.
Well, Billy Joe has them, and
I can't do it. One of the things that the first time I ever saw AFI changed me was just the aggression that they were I'd never seen people play like that on stage before. This is the first Warped Tour I went to, 2001 or something. And I'd never seen them before, but I loved their music, you know, from what I knew of it. I didn't know all their songs, but I knew enough in the set that it was enjoyable. But I'd never seen, because I previously had only seen either old men, dinosaur, like classic rock bands who had shit blow up behind them but didn't move or anything, or old man punk bands like, you know, Social Distortion or something, which, you know, not against them, but there was never a whole lot of stage movement there. So imagine, you know, an older version of that. So like watching the members of AFI just destroy a small stage area and never stop moving. And Davey never says, he just hears the song name, and if I have something to say, and then just goes to the next one. That was life-changing for me. Because I was like, oh, I don't have to be like, I can just go up there and be genuine, and that's a whole hell of a lot better than being this sort of statuesque, like preconceived person that's going to, you know. I think that's when I lost a lot of the rock star thing, because to me rock star changed then, because now it's like being the Billy Idol style rock star is a lot different, and I would love to do that, but I don't know that I'll ever be able to do that 100%, because I just have too many I have too much interest in constantly reminding myself of where I came from or why I do this.
What do you think, if you had a, you know, obviously, you know, you've got to try and say this somehow with some humility, but it's difficult, because what do you think it is that your fans have latched onto you as a performer? What about you?
I'm good at it. I'm good on stage. I mean, I don't need too much humility. I'm a good frontman. I would put my performance up against anyone in my age bracket or the bands that perform today. I'm not the best singer in the world. I sing well enough for our songs. I don't think it's any, you know, I'm not trying to tell anybody that, like, someone like Kellen is a great singer. I can never sing like him, but I can go on a stage and people will want to pay attention to me because I'm good at it, because I spent a lot of time doing that, and I know how to connect with an audience, and I know how to connect with our audience. It's genuine. When I smile on stage, it's not an act. I'm smiling because I'm happy to be there, and I get a kick out of it. But I also know when I'm running around and making faces and shit, it's because that's the show that I want to put off. And a lot of times people aren't aware of the show that they want to give. And I've always known that. And I wasn't great at it always. I've gotten a lot better through the years. The first time we had played a big stage, I was terrible. Like because we went from playing clubs to then we played Download Festival, and that's a whole different form of showmanship. I was used to, the stage is this big and I run from here to here to here to here, and I had to learn how to do a big stage and work a stage with pyro and all that. Now I can kind of do any of it, and I'm happy with it. I don't need to have humility when it comes to knowing that I'm good at something. Do
you think you know, that they say kind of in stage stuff, they say like Friday night crowds are the worst, because the people that come see performances and stuff are like, they're tired, they've been all the work week, and Saturday night crowds are more up, they had all day rest. Have you noticed that with like concert crowds too?
I never know what day of the week it is, so I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I honestly don't. Our fans have been so cool. For us personally, like as our band, we've always, the things that are the conventions of what people say things are always go against what Black Veil Bride's fans do. And the reason that we've even become successful in the first place is because of that audience. And it really is, you know, a lot of people say that, and everything's for the fans. But this is a band that we couldn't even get shows. I mean, the Whiskey wouldn't book us, Viper Room, none of those. We had to play parking lots, and 300 people would show up in a parking lot. That's why we ever started, because people cared. We would come play shows, and, you know, Peabody's had in their big room, they had someone that was important at the time that I don't remember, but fell off the face immediately. But, you know, at the time they were very important. So we were in the little room, and they had so many people spilling out of the little room that the big room was almost filled with people trying to get into the Pirates Cove area. Like, it's always been that I can talk a big game because I know that our fans will back it up. Nominate us for a fan voted award. Right. One year we won all of your AP awards. Exactly. Yeah, no, you guys win a lot of awards if you're not at least nominated, but you win a lot of them. But what I'm saying is, it's not because we have some magical abilities or that it's because the fans have always cared. And I think that the connection that we have with them, it's important and strong. A lot of times when people have a younger audience, they either grow to resent them because of their youth or their whatever, or their interest in other stuff, or they can never grow and the audience will lose interest. And I think the one thing that people sometimes talk shit about the younger kids, particularly the younger set of our audience. And by the way, now as have grown as a band, our audience is broad a lot more. I look out and it's not the way it used to be. There's 50-year-old metalhead dudes,
Right.
just like there's people in their 20s, just like there's younger kids. But when we first started, it was all predominantly younger kids. And I give our audience credit for being smart. They've grown with us. Our 3 records that we've released sound nothing like one another, really. Stylistically, it's the members of the band doing it, but we've been able to put out the kind of music that we want to, and our audience has grown. We've sold more records every time. We've gotten a bigger audience every time, as opposed to, some audiences where if a band changes something slightly, they're alienating the audience.
Sure.
But we've given our fans the credit of saying, you guys want this, stay with this. And they have.
How do you think you guys have, like you said, you guys have been able to do this, especially with like the Revolver world and the metal world a lot. You guys have been able to kind of go over to the Rock on the Range crowd pretty easily, but not a lot of bands get to be able to do that. They kind of get pigeonholed in and they kind of get stuck there. And then when they do try it and broaden out and they can't do it, sometimes they're pushed back by those outside, the forces that are in that genre. So we see this a lot with, you'll see bands kind of come out of the Warped Tour crowd or the Hot Topic crowd or whatever, AP crowd, and they'll try and go over into Pitchfork world, try and go over to Spin world, to try and go over to AV Club world, start to be taken, broaden it out.
Right.
And those people go like, what, you're a Hot Topic band? Like, and they dismiss them. So how do you think for you guys, were you able to do that?
We've never considered what those different audiences are. I've never once thought, oh, I wonder if this will alienate the Revolver audience if we do. I've always just saw it as, if we're a rock and roll band, I would like all forms of rock and roll people to pay attention. And if they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. To be honest with you, there is, and it's been written in AP before, that Black Veil Brides is trying to appeal to a more Rock on the Range audience. I don't know what the hell that means, because to me, a Rock on the Range audience, I look out and still see 3/4 of the audience are the people that are coming to our shows when we were on the AP tour. Like it doesn't, we've always been the kind of band that I don't think people know how to pigeonhole us. And there's a lot of bands, and I know I can think of, I'm not going to say them, but I can think of specific examples of bands that were on the cover of AP magazine and were headlining Warped Tour and then said, okay, well, we don't need that anymore.
Right.
We're going to be, we're never going to go back to that world. We're going to do this thing. And then, like a year later, now they're opening on a, first of 5 for Papa Roach or whatever. And I don't think we ever want to make a move in any direction. I just want to keep, people want to pay attention. I'd love that. I want to keep making the music that I make. I don't want to make a shift to a specific form of media or a specific audience, because if I personally don't care about that, because I would go and see a band like, Bullet for My Valentine as much as I would go and see a band like, I don't know, Aiden or something, you know what I mean? Like, and those are obviously in terms of appeal very different, but they've toured together in the past. And I think that there are certainly ways of crossing all that stuff. I'm not saying we're, going to be the band that's going to cross all the things, but I think it's just not caring about directing your audience. I don't want to tell them what to do. I don't want to tell people what they should like, because that's what has been done to me my whole life. And I've always been told, well, you wear those tight pants, you probably like this. Right. And I don't particularly,
Well, it is something to be said that I think humans like to be able to categorize things because it makes it easier for them to understand it.
We're
faster.
categorized as the makeup band that everybody hates by a lot of people, and then by other people we're categorized as the band that helps people, and then we're categorized. But we're obviously very divisive, but no one really knows why they hate us until, like, there's only, I would say that of the people who really dislike Black Veil Brides, 5% of them have ever listened to the music or know anything other than the press shot for Set the World on Fire. It's true, and it's amazing to me. And I'm not saying that our music is infallible. You could easily listen to our songs and dislike it, but I don't think people even take the time to do that, which is the most fascinating thing about this band, is that for some people we matter so much, and we can be in the top 5 consistently on active rock radio now, and we can #1 song on Slacker radio for weeks and weeks and weeks, and people that don't even know that they like our songs, and then they hear the name or they see that Set the World on Fire picture of us with the hair and the studs and everything, and they're like, that's the faggy makeup band, and they know nothing about it. When you hear sentences like bands like Black Veil Brides and Blood on the Dance Floor, what do you mean by that? Bands like that? I'd love to know what someone means by that. And to me, it goes, I see a young kid that has a Black Veil Bride shirt on and Blood on the Dance Floor bracelet, and that kid likes it because they like the aesthetic. I don't know anything about Blood on the Dance Floor, but I know I've heard. They are not musically anything like this band. The dude had hair. He has hair that kind of looked like my old hair. That's really the only thing I can add to that. They wear makeup. I don't think that there's any other, but it's a thing where you can draw that comparison immediately. You can go, I don't like those things. So you would never bother to listen to one or the other. And there are some people, again, not to try to put my band above another, but if you might like you might hate the heavy metal stuff, you might have heard our music, and you might like the kind of electronic stuff that some of these other bands do. You are not allowing yourself the opportunity to find any of that if you immediately lump it in. But people get mad at aesthetics. They go, oh, fans of Black Veil Brides, because they only like, and Ronnie and I were talking about this, they only like something that's visual. And I go, when you were 12, did you like the Ninja Turtles because of their genius message and meaning, or did you like the way they looked and you wore the shirt and you had the action figures? Right. It doesn't bother me if a young kid finds Black Veil Brides and likes us, and then they also like something that I particularly don't like. I don't listen to Blood on the Dance Floor's music, but I'm not going to get mad at a kid who likes both of those things, because they might, aesthetically, that might be something that's interesting to them. And I think it's ridiculous when either fans of music or musicians themselves have such high and mighty opinions on things that they draw that distinction on their own. That's not up to them.
Do you feel like sometimes the pressure's on too much to be worrying about the aesthetics? Does it kind of bum you out as a songwriter? And
no. And I think you and I talked about this when I was younger too. I've never paid much mind to it. I always knew that the band would evolve. I knew that we wouldn't be looking the same or doing the same thing forever, because I get bored with that. I can't keep my hair the same color. I tried to go back to my natural color for Warped. I can't do anything that long. I have to come up with a new thing. I'm already drawing what I think the band should do next and what the concept for, so when people saw the band, and by the way, that time period that we looked that way, the Set the World on Fire era that everyone kind of attaches, the Fallen Angels video, that was actually a shorter time period than even the way that the band has currently looked.
Right.
But that was such a distinctive image, and it was so different than what else was happening, that it became the all-encompassing image for the band.
Well, it's the first impression.
Right. And that's fine with me, because I still stand behind that. People go, oh, isn't it ridiculous they used it? And no, for what that was, that was the style for what that band was. And I'm happy that existed, because I don't think without that there would have been that foot in the door to shock people and wake people up and go, what the hell is this? And a lot of people saw that and they did listen to music because of it. And a lot of people saw that and they didn't. I could give a shit either way, really. People saw it, and that's fine with me. I have never been in the business of being interested in trying to, I'm not Marilyn Manson. I don't want to offend people's moral, whatever. But if someone sees an image of the band and they're so interested in it, it could affect me positively. They could go, what the hell is that? And then they hear a song that I wrote and they go, wow, that's cool. Inversely, that could be that they, for the rest of their lives, hate us and they make fan pages about hating us or whatever on Facebook.
Right, and sadly. You've met a lot of people, and I'm sure you've met a lot of idols. Is there any idol you haven't met yet?
Paul Stanley. I've never, and then purposely.
Really?
He's, to me, in my estimation, I think Paul Stanley is the most important driving force behind Kiss. And I think most people that really look at what the band is, Gene has always kind of been he's the media guy and everything. And the time that I ever met Gene Simmons was with cameras on him anyway, so I don't really know what he's like.
So you don't know what he's
I met him for his show, and it was me and the band, and it's good to see it coming back and whatever. So I have no idea what he's really like, and I don't care to. Some people I've met have been disappointing, and some people have been great. The people that are now like Sebastian Bach and Dee Snider and are friends and people that give me advice, and Nikki Sixx as well. We started out with kind of an interesting relationship, but it's developed into something where now he and I text on a regular basis. I go in and do his radio show all the time, and we're friends now. It's really cool in that regard. I put off meeting Danzig until this year. I had mutual friends and everything. I was like, I never want to meet him. I don't care. I've heard the stories. But thank God for the way that I met him this year was through the Golden Gods. I was the guy who, I don't think that if he was going to respect anyone in that room, there was nothing that could have happened that was more like punk rock to his ideas than me screaming at an entire audience full of people waving a statue at them. So that was like, I got to meet that kid. So that's the way I got to meet him. And he was, oh, you're the fuck you guy.
If you're going to meet one of your idols, that's the way to meet him.
He and Doyle, they were took pictures and whatever, and that was fun because I had Nick from Aiden, who had never met any of them, and obviously Aiden was hugely influenced by the Misfits and everything, and I brought him along and my bass player and took pictures with Doyle, and it was awesome.
Like you said, you've got friends now that some of these people that were your idols, and these people are iconic.
Will wasn't necessarily an idol to me, but
I wasn't thinking Will. I was thinking like
I'm saying in my head I was just thinking he wasn't. I didn't really know anything of Aiden, but William Control I found. And that's sort of the way that I discovered him. A friend of mine who was this girl who was kind of talking to him at the time, and like she was just kind of a band girl. She was like, oh, doing the same and whatever. And she sends me, this is right when the William Control album comes out. She was like, I know you love like, New Order and Sisters of Mercy and that kind of stuff. I think this would be right up your alley. And so she sent it to me, and I sent him a message on MySpace. I knew of Aiden, but I didn't know anything about him. I knew I didn't like them. Like, and I've told him this before. I knew that the only reason I knew I didn't like him is because I was of the age where I hated everything, and he could have been the big. And
knowing Will, he'd probably respect you for that.
But I didn't. Yeah. And also it wasn't. It was like the things that he wound up becoming disillusioned with were the things that I didn't like his band for. The reasons that he stopped, like, and it's unfair to say, but at the time, like, he was that kind of, I think Aiden became a lot better later in their career, because I think like a record like Knives, if I would have heard that as a kid, that would have been my fucking favorite band. But right. I think like a lot of bands like us, if you listen to We Stitch These Wounds and that's your first impression, I think that you probably wouldn't understand where the band has gone. In the same regard, I only heard maybe in passing Aiden's first song, and that wasn't what they were going to become. So I just didn't like it, whatever. I wrote it off. So I listened to the William Control record, and I sent him a message on MySpace. I just go, hey man, I'm really excited to see something like this happening. I know I've heard of your previous band before. I'm kind of an upstart band called Black Veil Brides. If you ever see us around, it'd be nice to have a conversation with you. I really, I kind of get the influences. I was like, Christian Death and all this stuff that I get where you're coming from. Nice to see it happening. And he wrote me back like 10 minutes later, freaked out that some fucking like what looked like MySpace, like whatever scene kid, whatever he's thinking in his head, writes back and it's writing him a message about New Order, or, all this kind of stuff. And so he was like, whoa. And from that moment on, he became one of the only people who was an advocate to me. He and Mick Morris from 18 Visions were like the two people who were already successful in some capacity, that when I was coming up would tell people like, no, this band is great and this kid's got something. And if it wasn't for particularly, for Will really did, he would fucking fight for me in the early days. Like, he was willing to go to bat. I mean, literally we got into fights with bands and together beat the shit out of bands, like because of people making fun of the makeup that we wore and stuff. Because I think he took us as, when he was starting Aiden, the shit that he got, he didn't want another band to have to get that. Because, in a way, he didn't want to do that anymore, so he kind of gave up on what Aiden was. He made the Conviction record, and he'd stopped with the makeup and everything, and he wanted to move past that. And I think he almost saw Black Veil as a second chance to kind of do that stuff and be involved in that. And if it wasn't for him in the early days, he was really a huge person that shaped my career as an artist and a musician. And I always tell him that. And to this day, I see him all the time. I was just at his house. I did a voiceover because he was the dude on my last record, so now I'm the voiceover guy on his new record he just did.
What's the best piece of advice you've gotten from any of these guys?
The best piece of advice that Will gave me recently was don't. It's so funny. I told him, I was like, I've been really thinking about musically. I've been writing some different stuff. I got together with Ronnie recently and we did some stuff and just different kinds of music that I had never gotten to write before. And I was just thinking, like, I was just sitting, just me and Will talking as friends. And I'm like, I really want to get into writing different kinds of music. And he was like, don't fuck up Black Veil Brides. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, whatever you do, write whatever you want. Don't write music that's gonna fuck up your band. He's like, that's what I did, and I lost a lot. Don't want to see that happen to you. And it wasn't my intention, but I never really thought about it that way. And I guess I always have to keep it in the back of my head that I don't want to ruin whatever my band's dynamic is, because I want to be what I want to be. And having said that, I think that I can walk that line creatively where I can still do what I want to do, because I always have, but separate it and do it kind of in my own way.
So you are very forward thinker. You're a planner. You're a businessman. You're a planner.
One British magazine once called me a cold-hearted businessman.
Cold-hearted businessman. Okay. Well, let me know when.
Which I thought was funny.
I'm waiting for the layoffs.
Right.
So, we could talk about what's next year, but knowing how you operate, what is your idea of 5 years from now?
Oh, I don't do the short term. I've never have. I hate.
Well, I'm thinking short term. 5 years is, in this day and age, technology wise, is long term.
Can't do it, man. Can't do it.
All right, so we'll go mid.
Let's
15.
Let's go next. I never like to put time frames.
Okay.
What's next?
The next phase.
I'm coming up with it right now. I have ideas. I want to take a little bit of time. I think we've put out a record consistently every year for the last 3 years. Not to say that I don't want to do that again, but I think Wretched and Divine was a chance to have a little bit more time to write, but it still was a pretty like get in there, do the record, and then release it and go on tour. Like for a concept record, we didn't have a whole lot of time. I wanted to start writing. You know, me and Feldy talk about writing together always. We do little stuff. We send stuff back and forth. Find, you know, who's going to produce it, who's going to do like all the stuff that, just the next steps in the band are what's really interesting to me. And I want to take some time to really look at that. We never have. Having said that, I won't do what some of my favorite bands did to me growing up, which is take 4 years, grow a beard, sit with my my statues and shiny records and feel great about myself and not make another record. Because I think that's, first of all, I want to make more music while I can. And I want to make more music for fans while they want it. And those two things combined, I don't see, like as much as I'm sitting here telling you now that I want to take time, I'm probably not going to. Like I'd love to do it, but I want to just do things. I want to make records. I want Black Veil Brides to have a new record. I was teasing my buddy Danny that in the time that they put out one more record, I put out 3 just because my mind is always working something.
You have a lot of friends of yours that are musicians, obviously, and especially the younger ones that we all know, and the pressure on them to be constantly on social media and being constantly like, got to keep it going, got to keep the content, got to keep the content. Do you ever kind of feel that pressure? I mean, you're a pretty good Instagrammer. You don't seem to be adverse to it.
No, I like it.
So,
I enjoy it, man.
But
There's no better place for vanity than just taking a picture of myself. No, I'm not a crazy social media guy. Me and Juliet always have like little. It's not fights, but little teasing sessions because she will talk about everything we do in a day, and I always tease her. I'm like, babe, I'm going to the bathroom. You wanna tweet about it, or just let the fans know that? Because my thing is, and she's actually, I think that since our relationship is, because she previously was always like with her fans before she and I got together, she was always known with her fans of being super open, and I think that to her credit, she knows that I'm a much more private person, and she, to her credit for our relationship, has always been very conscious of that and doesn't tweet out all this stuff, which I think to her fans, some of them might be, that were Automatic Love Letter fans, they're a little upset that she isn't so open anymore. But one of the things that, it's a kind of an unspoken thing, she knows that in my life, I have been a online media figure since I was 15, and I like to have something, and I don't hide anything from the fans. There's no secrets that, but if I sit down with a bagel and watch Netflix, like I don't need everyone to know that. They get enough. And I didn't learn that distinction until it was the first time we ever did a major headlining tour, and my mom was at the show, and she said that one of the things that was upsetting her was that people kept writing her. She didn't know why it upset her, but people kept writing her saying, do you have any pictures of Andy when he was a baby? And she said that she has no problem with people seeing photos, but in a sense, she wanted to say like, well, no, you have him now. Like you get him every day. You get the pictures. Like you don't get to know everything about when he was a kid. That's, that's mine. And I told that, and that's sort of an abiding belief that I have in my life and I have in my relationship and everything. Like I always try to have you get this and I get this. You get to have a lot of my life as my audience that deserves it, that they've given me a career in the first place, as long as you let me have a few things and you don't try to trample on that. Just let me have some stuff for my life. Let me and, the lady in my life, let us watch a movie without telling you about it, and don't get mad at me for that, because I promise you I'll give you photos and everything else. And I think our audience has been really good about that. There are some bands who don't give their audience anything, and then inversely there's some bands that it's like they can't fucking shut up, like all day, everything. And I like to think that we fall somewhere in between. I think that we're the kind of group that the fans will give us our space. And also, in some ways, if I don't tweet for a couple of days, they invent that I have lung cancer, and then but I think it's a little not
to laugh about lung cancer, but yes, I know that's probably the biggest complaint I've ever heard from a lot of musicians today, is that the fans won't let them shut off.
But it's okay. It's like being elected to be president and then complaining about wearing a tie. If you're lucky enough to get what you want, you should be able to deal with the accoutrements of that. And to me, if I'm lucky enough to be this guy who gets to go on stage and sell records and live the dream that I wanted to live my whole life, being like, hey, what's up, guys, shouldn't be the worst thing in the world. And it doesn't bother me. there are obviously funny things about it. Like I said, the fact that if I forget to do it, someone's like, "Oh, he's dead," but
Right.
and that's
Rehab.
yeah,
Right.
but but if I'm honest, I like talking to the kids. Those people, regardless of whether they're 65 years old or 6 years old, in some capacity can relate to me. There's the reason that they're following me is they either like my music or they have an aesthetic reason for liking me. There's something about them that is going to be my friend or be kind to me, and there's no reason that I wouldn't want to talk to those people.
So I want to ask this question, and then I want to do the lightning round, and then we'll wrap this up.
Okay.
So, and this does get talked about in the story, but I want to ask you this in person because I think just in just audio and stuff like that, it'll probably may even a different answer. But the story that we're doing with you is basically like how you became this person, how you got from Cincinnati to where you're at.
Yeah.
So is there one thing that Andy of now would go back and say to that kid back then about life?
I think, and I did touch on it a little bit in the piece, that the only thing that I really, we talked about it a little bit before today as well, there are certain parts of my lack of social skill or interest that I think didn't serve me super well in the early days of me being in Los Angeles. Not even when I was younger, but when I first got to LA, I think I would have done well to make some more friends or to try to be a little bit less, this way. That's not to say that now, fortunately, I've been in a situation where I have a bunch of very close friends and I have a world of people that are around me and close to me and I can contact. But that's something that happened only in the last 5 years that I really got a close friend group, because in the early years of me being in LA, it was just what I have to do this now. And so that's maybe the only thing that I would like to, I can't change anything, but maybe just be like, hey, maybe lighten up a little bit and have some friends every once in a while. I promise you that if you just go hang out tonight, you're not going to lose everything. It's all going to, but who knows? Who knows what would happen?
Okay. So before I go into this lightning round, was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I'm excited about the lightning. Bring the lightning.
Okay, the lightning round. All right, here we go. So these are what I call the Wikipedia questions.
Oh, good.
So these are the ones that hopefully you won't get asked again.
Okay.
So we just get them out of the way. All right. So, but some of these you probably have been asked 40 million times. So we're just going to start off at the top. Favorite color?
Crimson.
Most unique answer I've heard yet. Favorite movie?
I'm not good at this lightning round thing. I think too much. I can't say it off the cuff. I have to say a bunch of stuff about it.
Well, don't be Hollywood. It's like you're afraid you're going to offend somebody that you know.
No, I'm not going to offend anybody. I'm genuinely trying to think what's the movie I like to watch the most. Something that never gets old.
How about you're sick with the flu and it's the one you won't get mad at?
See, that's hard. It could go in so many different directions. All right, here you go. Basic. One that I always enjoy watching every time. Seven.
Awesome.
Every time.
That is actually one of the few. The same thing with me. All right. Favorite place to recharge. So I'm going to give you some spots. Okay. Oceans, mountains, grasslands, prairie lands, stuff like that. Desert, forests, suburbia, or cities?
Probably suburbia.
Really?
Yeah. I lived in the city in LA for a while, and I went nuts. And we moved to Studio City, and I love nothing more the fact that then there's a school and there's people, and I can walk to a gas station and I can walk to a restaurant, and I love that. I don't know why I love that.
That's awesome. Favorite? Well, we kind of already said favorite junk food.
I like York peppermint patties or Junior Mints.
Or Junior Mints. That's okay. That's awesome. Favorite old standard. Like Rat Pack song.
Yeah. Geez. Well, because there's that's a tough one too, because I got family stuff. Can I just say this? It's not one song specifically, but something that will always make me feel very comfortable because of a familial thing is anything Lawrence Welk soundtrack. All right, let me explain. My grandfather, who was one of my best friends in the world, the way that I even found out about music before I knew anything and performers was watching Lawrence Welk with him all the time. So any of those weird old, Conway Twitty kind of songs,
sure,
they're not necessarily the things we'd think of, but that kind of bubblegum version of standards, that's to me, that's the equivalent of someone rubbing your back and a massage. Like, it's very relaxing for me.
If people don't know who Lawrence Welk was, you got to think of the Saturday Night Live sketch with Kristen Wiig. And
right, with the little hands. Yeah,
right, that's basically all taken off of Lawrence Welk. And
the show wasn't that ridiculous. It was ridiculous.
Because I always used to watch this show and go like, I really want to know what that person's like off camera. They're probably not.
Did you ever watch that? Well, because you could have known. They every once in a while PBS would run Where Are They Nows, like a version
really?
and it was all the most fake, like crazy makeup, like we're doing great, and then they would cut to like Lawrence, who's just in the grave, like
right, exactly, yeah. He was Canadian, I think.
He was some kind of something.
He was really
some kind of wonderful.
He was. Favorite time period in American history.
I like that you had to clarify who Lawrence was. It didn't even occur to me that people wouldn't know. I think it's probably good that you did that.
There's so many people that don't even know who the Smiths are watching this. So I've just it's my age. Favorite time period in American history. If you could live in any time period.
Shit. Well, I would say it would be hard for me to pass up like late 70s, just because of there's so much that I would have liked to have seen, in terms of the early punk movement and classic rock, sort of the really shitty classic rock was dying, and like then there was disco, which is exciting for people. I'm not a disco fan, but it was an exciting time for music. And then because then early 80s you had new really fresh stuff come in, and that would have been awesome. Sure.
Favorite stiff drink?
Stiff drink. I'm a general, Jack and Coke kind of guy, but my favorite drink of all time, it's not a stiff drink, it's a very sippable drink, and we have tattoos dedicated to it, is the Seagram's whiskey and Mountain Dew. It's called a Sea-Dew, and a lot of our fans know that. I've actually seen fans get Sea-Dew tattoos the same ones we have as a band, but that's not a stiff drink. That's like so I like a double, triple whiskey with a little splash of Coke, because I'm not the like Scotch guy, man. I like a little bit of sweetness to my alcohol.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Right. Well, now people know what to get you. Favorite TV series
of all time?
Yeah.
It's really, I didn't know this until this year, but I really got to say that maybe it's not my favorite. It's a two-part answer. The thing that is like a warm blanket wrapping its arms around me is The Office.
Okay.
And I can't.
US?
Both, because I started with the UK version. I hated the US one when it first came out, because again,
how can you get better than Ricky Gervais?
Right, and always hating anything that everybody gets to know about.
Right.
The immediacy of it, yeah. But then I grew to love it. But then and that's the one that'll always make me happy. But in terms of, I can't deny that Breaking Bad, in my estimation, is the best television show probably ever. I mean, it's incredible, really. And I'm not like a mega. I don't own shirts or whatever. Like there's mega fans of the series, but I can't deny that that's like, it's incredible.
It was really well done. Favorite item of clothing you'd wear every day if you could get away with it?
Well, I already do. I wear pretty much the same thing. I mean, I'm wearing this thing today, this jacket today, but normally it's the biker jacket with the black wife beater and black pants. I've been wearing these pants for about 2 weeks. I don't really wash. Why do you need to wash pants? I Febreze them. It's fine. I'm on tour right now, people. It's okay. You can excuse my weirdness about like cleanliness on tour. Most people on tour don't even bathe, so
it's body spray and you're done.
I do. I take care of the bathing. I try to.
Favorite club to play in, not to get you in trouble.
Club.
When you see it on the list for this tour, you're like, oh yes.
It really was for a long time. It was Peabody's. I always enjoyed playing there because just with the memories and the audience. For some reason, Cleveland was always really connected with us. I love West Hollywood House of Blues just because it's always a party and it's always like a homecoming.
Sure.
So yeah, that's how I would say.
Favorite song you don't get to perform enough because it just doesn't fit the set, or
a song called "Resurrect the Sun" from our latest record that we did on our headline tour to support the record. But it's a song that you can only do if you have an hour and a half set. And even then, it doesn't always fit contextually. It's a little different. So, but I'd love to do a song called "Lost It All," which we had on the last record as well. Which it's kind of a big, epic kind of Queen thing happening. There's trumpets and my Juliet Sims sang on the song, and it's a beautiful song. But it's one of those things that I would only ever want to do it if we could do it perfectly, and it would be a very hard song to pull off.
Tour bus, bunk, top, middle, lower?
Middle left. Only because I used to be top bunk, and then I smashed every rib on the side of my body in 2011, and I had to sleep in the tour manager's bunk, which is always middle right with the fucking phone in it, because I couldn't sleep on this side of my body, and it was the only thing I could get into. I couldn't go too low, couldn't go too high because of the bones. then I just loved it, but I hated the phone. So now I just moved to the other side. I've been on that side of the bus for years now.
Do you have a system set up in your bunk? Like somebody I knew recently, they actually went out and got a widescreen mini TV. And
I don't do any of that. Jinx does that. Jinx has an insane, like my rhythm guitar player. It's always he has a whole studio, but he does it on a ceiling. No, I'm serious. He has a computer upside down that he's adjusted the monitor so it's upside down. He's got a full Mac Pro Tools rig he's got keyboards, he's got little MIDI string thing on the where he can play because he plays violin. He's got it all on the ceiling, so he lays and makes music like this. It's amazing. When on Warped Tour, Juliet did the second half of Warped Tour with us, and I wanted it. It's the only time I've ever decorated my bunk. I wanted her to feel comfortable because she was gonna be. So I bought a bunch of fluffy pillows and stuff, and But right now I'm completely stock. Whatever was already in the bus when I got there. That's what, can't be bothered.
Favorite time of year? You're in LA now, so it's a little bit different, but
I wish that we had more of a fall, but this really is my favorite time of the year. I like the weather. I like it being the way that it is today is like my favorite temperature and feeling outside.
Favorite piece of rock and roll memorabilia that you own? Like that 7-inch or that autograph or anything?
Oh God, there's I think it's the sweetest thing that I've ever gotten, and it's not even the thing that's worth the most. It's the first year that Juliet and I were dating, she bought me my favorite Social D record, like a nice copy of that, and my favorite Bruce Springsteen record. And nice, I mean, they're not vintage, it was just like, at that point we didn't know that much about each other, and it was just like, it was the nicest, and I have it. It was very sweet that she cared that much about not the stuff that everybody knows about me. She didn't buy me a Motley Crue record or something, is what I'm saying. Like, it was really the things that meant a lot to me. So I care about that.
Well, name your holy shit show, which is the one where you walk out on stage and you're blown away.
We've played bigger shows and bigger headline shows and everything since then, but the first time we headlined London, we have since sold out Brixton Academy. Like, we've done the things that you want to do when you're a little kid, and those were amazing, and that was holy shit. But in terms of the first time I ever got to see, it was Shepherd's Bush Empire, which is a smaller venue than Brixton Academy, but it was the first time we ever headlined London, and it was what to me was 9 million people. Like, I think the capacity was like 3,500 or something, but it seemed like forever. Like, and there was balconies, and it's like a beautiful theater, and there were posters that David Bowie had played there and everything, and it was just like, I feel like we sounded great. Like, it was an amazing show. And again, it's not as if that's been the biggest show we've ever played, but I always remember that as being a moment where I walked out on stage and everything went right for me in that show. Like, I sang great. Like, it was good.
Are you really critical on this show when you're hyped?
We all are. We never it's very rare that we go back to the bus and say that we had a good show. We go back and hate every show that we've ever done. I'm serious. I mean, it's unfortunate because we criticize any show that the fans see of us on the road and they enjoyed it. We enjoyed being there with them, but as soon as we're off the stage, we're talking about all the shit that went wrong all the time.
I'm gonna make this one up on the spot, but name the thing that you hate when industry people say to you backstage. We all have ours.
A thing, yeah.
There's a series of them, and sometimes I found. Maybe that.
Oh no! It's honestly for me. I think most people avoid it now, but I hate when people tell me their career advice for me more than anything. And I hate it. I hate it because I hate when people have an opinion that, in my estimation, is not based on all the things that I've been through, and it's not. It's something that has been easier for me to understand over the years, but. Particularly when I was younger and people would give me advice, I was not ready to hear it, nor was I interested. And that was always I always felt really inappropriate that people would come backstage and tell me what they thought I should be doing. I'm like, all right, well, have a good show. Glad you could let me know what you think of me. But now I understand it. I mean, fortunately, it's weird because now at the point that I would get it, people don't do it anymore. But when I was young, I was just sort of, like I said before, I was not ready to hear what anybody else had to say. I wanted this to be the thing that I wanted to do.
Sure.
And almost at the risk of burning relationships with people and everything else, it was this. So I think when people would come backstage and be like, whether it's a booking agent, whoever, they'd be like, I think you should do next. Like, I think that it would be really cool if you shot a na-na-na and then you went and what if you wore this thing or did that? And I was just like, you don't get, only I have thoughts, which is ridiculous. But at the time, hated it.
Time you almost died on the road touring.
Oh, so many. let's just say this. I don't know if I almost died, but the most fear I ever had in my heart, and it was the smallest injury I ever got. I fractured my skull. Well, there's two things. One is an actual death thing, and then this one is just a fear thing because of where I was. Fractured my skull from here to here in Luxembourg. Now, I don't know if you know a lot about Luxembourg, but you could fit most of Luxembourg into the Cleveland House of Blues in terms of population. And
tax rates probably really high.
Yeah. Well, we were playing a show, and it was the venue capacity was 3,500 or something. And the promoter's like, you have to understand, there's not going to be a lot of people here tonight. And we're like, why? And he goes, because all of our country would have to be here for that. Like, so if you get like 300 people here, like it's awesome for us. Like our return on this is going to be awesome. So there was, like 350 people, and they were through the roof. This is amazing. In a 3,500 capacity club does not look good. And we were like, whoa. So I go out there and I'm being reckless on stage. I roll underneath the drum riser and try to get myself back up, smash my skull. Now, I've broken a lot on whatever, but I try to go to a hospital, and there is nothing scarier than the hospital in Luxembourg for an American. They don't speak English. It's a room this big. They're trying to give the needles and shit. I have a broken face. Like I don't know a lot about medicine. Cursory knowledge tells me that I don't need to be drinking weird viscous liquids and being stabbed in the arm. Like I don't think that's what I need for this. So that was frightening. The most realistic like death experience, where the only time in my life that I ever said I'm going to die right now or had to come to terms with the fact that I might die right now, a couple years ago we went to Japan for the first time, and we were in sound check, and the whole time we had been in Japan there were tremors, little earthquakes, and everybody in Japan wants to make fun of us because we're California guys who know that earthquakes can go real bad, but we've not experienced that level of them. So we're like, bracing ourselves because we're thinking Northridge or whatever.
Right, sure.
And we're in sound check, and we're playing in Tokyo, and all of a sudden, crack. And the whole room starts to go like this. And you see the eyes of the guy who's been laughing at us go, oh shit. Says something in Japanese, starts yelling at everybody. They get us, they say, you get out of here, evacuate. Now the room doesn't collapse entirely, but there's a kink in the ceiling and the whole thing's shaking. I'm talking like speakers are swinging around and we're freaking out. We get up, it's an underground venue. So we get up, go up the steps, and we get on the street, and there is an H&M building and a Forever 21, and they're across the street. And I'm no more than the distance of an average road, two lane road with a sidewalk on either side. I'm on the other sidewalk, and the ground smashes, and H&M does this, tips and touches the Forever 21 building, and then goes back. And that was like, and then the whole ground splits, and then and like when I saw a giant building bend and touch another building and then snap back, like I was like, well, this could be it. And so that was the 8.9 earthquake that then followed, the tsunami followed, and we were there during all that. So we were quarantined during the first days of the tsunami until we could leave. Like it was insane. Even when we got to the airport, it was still so dangerous. We had video of us getting to the airport, and they were only letting like 3 flights out back to the States a day because the whole airport is still doing this. And there's stacked to the ceiling. People have sleeping bags and emergency gear, and that was the scariest thing in my life.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, that was rough.
Wow. Well, thankfully you're still here with us, and if you could survive that, you could.
What if I'm not? What if I died there, and this has all just been a weird sort of post-stream?
It's very, very. What is it? Untouchable? Or
Yeah.
Bruce Willis movie.
My whole life is a Bruce Willis movie.
Die Hard.
Directed
5?
by Lynch.
Yeah, right. Maybe one of the two. I really appreciate you coming in and doing this.
Thanks,
I think
man.
it was
Had a good
awesome.
time.
That's right.
Absolutely.
I keep forgetting we have to handshake because we're on video now. And I wish you the best of luck. We'll probably meet up again, and we'll do one of these in the future.
Absolutely. I'd love to.
Awesome. Thanks.